Hello everyone, my name is Jeremy, this is NFT Art, and today I'm going to tell you a real story about 4 characters named Harry, Larry, Barry, and Gary, and the importance they played in teaching me how valuable your environment is and how your environment can really control or create your reality. So putting yourself around good people can really make things better. So that being said, if you want to hear this whole story, this real story, and if this isn't crazy enough, my dad's name is Jerry, but if you want to hear this whole story, follow along. I'm going to start it right now. The story starts with my grandfather, Harry. My grandfather, Harry, was one of the nicest, kindest people I've ever met in my whole life. When I would go over my grandparents' house, it felt safe, it felt easy going. They made you food, they made you feel comfortable. My grandfather gave me my first car. I know that's very lucky, but my grandfather was known as the type of guy that would give you the shirt off of his back. And I know that's a saying that we hear sometimes, but this was like really kind of the type of person he was. And just like nature changes, so do our environments. And before I even knew it, my grandfather passed away, my grandmother passed away, and that environment was gone, and I never saw anything quite like it. I had no idea how lucky I was at the time. Even though it was a great gift, it was like a rug was pulled out. And so we have to also remember and be fortunate for the environments we're in, because it doesn't always get better. Little did I know I was going to go on a journey of meeting more people that rhymed with Harry. And so my dad was Jerry, but the next person that really played a role in this, his name was Larry. I know what you're thinking. How did I end up here? Well, what happened was I went to college to be an art teacher. I moved to Florida, and I realized it wasn't, I guess I'm missing a lot of the story, so I better back up a little bit. Hold on. Okay, so when I lived with Jerry, my parents, that's basically when my ego was formed. I learned how to defend myself. My dad taught me how to be kind, how to be patient. He still showed me unconditional love. On the other side, my mom, she taught me how to fight for myself, how to stick up for myself. Both being really good things, but in turn, my ego was formed. I used to walk around with a camcorder like this all the time. I was a successful young man. I was a football player. People loved me. But the thing is that was a lot of that was my ego. That was not all of me 100%. I was focused mainly on myself during those years. I was a little bit more selfish. And the crazy thing is, I think people liked me more. When I lived at home with my parents, when I lived with Jerry, it was almost like go to college or get a job and move out. So it felt like you had to go to college, you know? It seemed like the right move. And I felt like my passion for art, being an art teacher, was the perfect recipe.
You know, I get to express myself, be myself, try to encourage people to express themselves. And
I learned that basically the world was much different than I thought.
I was teaching like 40 kids. The classes were like way too much.
And I realized that it wasn't what I thought it was. It was way too much work. I looked at my art teacher like he had the best job in the world. The point is that the ego that I formed was
an illusion.
And I just couldn't do it anymore, and I quit that job. And I moved all the way back to New York State. And I was desperate, and I found a job working at a furniture company. And that's where I met Larry. Now Larry would run the whole warehouse. And the rest of the guys, they had crews of men that would go out on these furniture jobs and build office furniture. Larry was the guy in the warehouse, and Larry was the guy that was left with a lot of the garbage. People would leave trash for Larry. They would come back on the jobs with tons of boxes, styrofoam, cardboard, everything like you couldn't even imagine. And they would dump it right there on those warehouse doors. When people get disrespected, they get pissed off. My favorite Larry story is we all show up at work in the morning and Larry's out by the dumpster whipping surfaces around the parking lot in frustration. And everyone's like,
Larry's absolutely lost his mind.
but why? So as I grew with the job and I started to pay attention and tried to help others, I was now in a leadership role. I was really noticing and asking questions like, why is Larry acting this way? Why is Larry so upset? And so I learned that if you could get to the root of the problem, you could really help people. And the organization doesn't have to run so unsmoothly if you just consider people and don't disrespect them. And so, man, I was really doing well at this job. I was starting to really find my groove. I mean, people respected me, they liked me. And then COVID happened. And at that moment in my life, I said to myself, this is an opportunity for you to try something new. It's time to try to be a leader in this world to more than just a small company. Try to be a leader to many, many people and do it through camera, something I really love. But I failed. I'm okay with failure. I'm still working at it. When things failed and I really didn't take off as a YouTube star like kids, we tried a whole bunch of things. But when it didn't work out, I ended up getting real desperate. The furniture company got to a point where they didn't want me back. And so now I ended up working at a construction company as a driver. And that's where I met Barry. Now, when I bumped into Barry, I was at one of the lowest points in my life. My dream didn't work out. I felt like a failure. I knew I had to go back to some form of a work. And the only job I seemed to land was the job as a driver at a construction company. And that's where I met Barry. When I met Barry, the very first thing he said to me was, move. Like, wow. I felt like everything that I ever did in my life, everything I ever worked at, I had lost. I was very humbled. This experience where I realized I was kind of all alone and no one was going to help me. That ego came back. My mother, thank you for giving me the toughness. Because when he told me to move, I said, you're not going to speak to me that way. My experience with Larry taught me that Barry was probably taken advantage of most of the time he was working there. People were just taking, and that's why he was so crabby. Eventually, over time, I realized I have to give to this man in order to get him to work with me. And it worked. Eventually we started to respect each other. Eventually he started to respect me. But the problem was, it was not enough. My back was in pain. I was crying. I didn't like the environment. I felt like I was giving myself to someone else to get their approval, but there wasn't anyone giving back to me. I felt really abandoned. I felt alone. I cried. I cried because I felt like no one cared about me anymore.
At times I sat on my couch and I said, please just let me be in a new world where people are like me or they can understand me. I want to work with like-minded people. I want to create something great. I want to work with people who understand me.
And I got to work, and I started putting out applications everywhere, and no matter what I did, I couldn't get a call. If you're at the low point, if you're at a low point where you're in an environment where you feel like you can't win, no matter what you do, you can't win, you need to try to move on. You need to look to the sky and say, I'm better than this. Please give me a chance to put myself around like-minded people. I only pray to God when I need a favor. Who the heck am I? Who the heck am I? Who the heck am I? Who the hell am I? Who the hell am I? Who the hell am I? Right here, I was at the lowest point and I was asking God for, please help me, put me with like-minded people. And that's when I met Gary. So the crazy thing about Gary is I was recently hired at a school as a teacher, and I was sharing a room with an IT guy. Like that made any sense. So the room was basically more like a storage room, and you just kind of went from room to room with a cart and some supplies, and that's how you went about your job as a teacher, creating art and crafts. Well, anyway, sharing a room with Gary at first seemed really confusing because I'm thinking to myself, does this make any sense at all whatsoever? But as I sat and as I paid attention and as I learned about who Gary was, I started to realize he was one of the most favorite people in the whole building. I have not been in many places or been around many people in my life in which people like the other person kind of a lot more than me. So Gary was definitely the favorite. People love Gary, and what Gary provided was unconditional love. He was just kind to everyone, and he was kind all the time. And if someone needed something, he was always willing to help out, and he didn't keep score. Gary was almost the same type of guy as Harry. Gary was also the type of guy that would give you the shirt off of his back. And so in the beginning, when I really wanted my own art room, after a while I realized the real gift is sharing a room with this person. I need to absorb some of Gary's energy. I need to be a leader like Gary. And so the cycle started with my grandfather Harry, and I saw this great man and this person who would give and help other people. And throughout my journey of life, I realized the world was not so kind. But you know what? There's many kind people. And Gary was a light for me in a dark time. And Gary also taught me and reminded me, hey buddy, grow up, mature a little bit, and start to be the light. Start to give to others and try to change the world for the best. That's all you really have to do, is smile and listen to most people to be a big part of their life. Say good morning, say hello, how are you? How was your weekend? And be willing to listen. And so Gary listened to me, and this was the first time in a long time I felt like I was in an environment in which I can grow and flourish. And what I want you guys to remember is that you also can change your environment, your situation. If you're not in a situation that you like, if something is not good for you, if you need to change the environment. If you keep doing the same thing, you're going to get the same result. If you're not happy, you need to find a way. So I just want to thank everyone from Harry, Larry, Barry, Gary, my dad Jerry. I want to thank all of them for impacting me and teaching me these valuable life lessons. I want you to tell me about your environment in the comment section. I want you also to like this video and share it with someone that needs to change their environment. We are trying to change this world on this channel. It's not really about selling NFTs. It started out that way, but now it's about art. It's about people. It's about conquering your fears. And it's about self-love and loving others. So I hope that you have a great rest of your day. And hey, click on the video that I put right here, somewhere over here, and stay blessed. Love you all. Bye.